Hi, everybody. My name is Reed Sawyer. I'm really pleased to introduce one of my dear friends, and her name is Heather Seitz Tankersley, and she is a real estate superstar. And I've known Heather for 17 years now. And Heather, I want you to about, tell me a little bit about your family. Tell me a little bit about your beautiful little daughters, about your husband, and then I'll go ahead and ask you about how you got started in real estate. But tell me about your family first.
Sure. So I have two little girls. They're sweet, sweet, precocious little things. We had a hard time getting them here. So we went through IVF and we had 5 rounds of IVF ultimately to have them. And, as the saying goes, things happen for a reason when they're supposed to. And during that journey, I was connected to a nonprofit. So it's kind of been gone full circle. So I work with a board to help other people going through IVF or that need to go through IVF that can't afford treatment.
Okay.
And, I think because of that, not that we all don't cherish our kids and, adore our kids, but I think even on the challenging days, if you just step back and remember what all it took to get them here and, just how, just the struggle, it makes you, on those challenging days, you just say, you know what, we're just so thankful and so blessed. And, every day they just, they just bring us joy and it just teach us so much about life, and they're really the center of, as all kids are, but they really are, my whole world. And I met my husband, I guess probably about 15 years ago now. We just celebrated our 11th wedding anniversary. And you mentioned real estate, and it's funny because I was working, or I had my real estate license and a friend of mine was letting me use their MLS access. Don't say anything, it's not allowed, but this was 15 years ago. And he grew his brokerage, and he says, you need to go get your license and hang it somewhere because it no longer makes sense. I'd have to pay for 11 agents to be down there. So I got my license. I had a house in Miami and a house in West Palm. So a friend of mine said, go to this company. And I went and I went up and I met with this lady and I said, okay, that's cool. So a couple months later, I went in with a big stack of leads, leads that weren't good investor leads, but would still potentially be good for listings. And so I sat down with the owner team leader and I just said, here's this scenario. This is what I've got. I did a lot of probate back then and a lot of absentee owners. And I said, I want somebody that I can just sit down and explain it to once. I don't want to have to hold anybody's hand, but I'd like to make an additional stream of income. And so she sends me down the hall and she says, go to the second room on the right and ask for Brandon, or on the left. And so I went down the hall and kind of gave the spiel to the guy. And long story short, it was his mom that owned the brokerage. And it was his office that she sent me to. I kind of joke that, your mom set us up. And then, as they say, the rest is history. So we've been together ever since. And just kind of one of those things. He had a successful career in telecom, but his aunt had gotten sick. So he went home to just kind of be with family and help for a little while. And it just so happened that, they were all in real estate. So he says, I'll get my license. Why not? And so that's how we met. And, 2 kids and 15 years later, here we are.
I want to go back to how you conquered fear and how you, as a very shy and introverted person, was able to sell security systems in Miami. And tell me the story behind that, because to me, that's inspirational. Everybody can learn how to go ahead and conquer fear if they follow your method. If you would tell us a little bit about that.
Yes. So it was right after 9/11. I'd lost my job right before 9/11. So everyone's like, oh, it killed the economy. I'm like, yeah, the economy was starting to have some issues a little bit before. I was in web design and development and had a degree that was pretty quick to go. It was usability engineering. So kind of went out the door. And so right after 9/11, I answered this ad in the paper. And so it was not real clear, obviously, because if they said you're going to sell alarms door to door, nobody would go in for the interview. So I got there and a friend of mine came with me and we just kind of listened to the pitch and how much money you could make. And we said, we're not really doing anything else at this point. We can't get any other work. And so might as well check it out and see what happens. And, my feeling was pretty much the last thing I ever wanted to do was door-to-door sales, and then tack on sell alarm systems. And, it was right at the top of things I just never in my wildest dreams would have thought I was doing. And so we would actually all get on a bus, and they'd drop us in a neighborhood that had had a break-in or something the night before. Not a bus, but like a pretty good size. I guess it was a small little bus. And so we would just have to canvass the streets, knocking on doors, trying to sell strangers alarm systems. And so it was very short-lived. I'd say maybe a month, but I just thought, if I can get over this and be successful with this, I can pretty much do anything. And my first night, I think I sold 3 alarms, and it was $300 commission per alarm. And so, well, that's not a bad 3.5 hours worth of work. And so I got pretty good at it. And then I don't know if you know this story, but the funny thing is that after doing that, our first year in real estate, we worked this particular neighborhood in it was Hollywood, Florida, just north of Miami. And the neighborhood we actually flipped our first probably 15, 20 homes in was the same neighborhood that we were selling alarms in a year or two before. So it's kind of funny. It just, we're like, hey, we know that street. I sold an alarm there. So it's just kind of funny how life works and how things happen.
Tell me about how you first got started in real estate and how we got to know each other.
So again, way back in the middle of, nobody having work, it was late night infomercial came on. And, as you can't sleep, and that's what you do when you're unemployed, is you watch late night infomercials. And so we came across this one, and a friend of ours had happened to have purchased the program. So he made us a copy, and we said, okay, I think we can do this. And so we didn't know anything. And as a friend of mine at the time, and this program came with a list of forms, and we had no idea. We didn't know what deed, we didn't know anything. And it happened to be her parents got divorced. They gave the house to her brother, and he never made a mortgage payment, which doesn't work very well, in case you were curious. And so we said, okay, well, we'll get this figured out. And we took every deed out of this thing. We took a warranty deed, a special warranty deed, a quick claim deed. We don't know what to do. So we figured we're bound to have the correct one if we fill them all out. And that's kind of how we started. We got the books that said, oh, if you do this renovation, you'll get this much in return. And so we had this house in this little bedroom community in kind of, I'm guessing you'd probably know better than I, probably 15, 20 minutes outside of Orlando, Deltona, Florida.
Oh, yes.
And we had this house there, and it was, worth $170,000, except the neighborhood said it was really worth about 135. But we're like, no, but the book said if we do this, it'll increase the value this much. And so we're kind of trying to do our own open houses, wanted to save the commission on a real estate agent. And so we'd fly or drive up every weekend and run open houses and try to sell this house. And well, it was on the market. Again, commercial comes on, and it was, here's a free seminar. And I'm like, that's good, because that's about all we can afford right now. And so we show up at this free seminar, and the pitch was for a $4,000 weekend. And the speaker, who's to this day a really good friend of mine, he's, and I get the pitch. He says, well, you can borrow money from a friend. I'm like, nope, all our friends are broke. You can put on a credit card. Nope, maxed out on credit cards. And I remember thinking there, he's like, forget what the question was. And I just remember thinking zero would be really good. Like if I could see zero, we'd be in a good way. I was so buried and underwater, and so is my friend. And so then we had this idea. I said, you know what? My mom just retired, and she wanted to invest. So let's just see if we can borrow the money from her. And so she loaned us the $4,000, and we told her we'd pay her back next month. No idea how we were going to do this. I think we thought we were going to sell the house and get it to her. So first rule of sales is, when you get the answer you want, shut up. I didn't. So we kept talking and had to figure out how to get it back. And so our whole thing was, you could go, and if you didn't feel value the first day, you were able to just leave and get your money back. So our plan was to say, we're going to go find 3 deals and bring them in. And if they are what they purport themselves to be, they're going to help us structure this deal and pay for the event. If not, we have no other way to get our money, get her paid back. So at the end of day one, we're out. So we just sat on the phone for the next 10 days and called, it was before Google and before all of that good stuff. So, or I guess there was Google, but it wasn't what it is now. And people were still using newspapers a lot. And we just sat down and called the for sale by owner and for rent by owner ads day in and day out for 10 days. And we were able to get one deal. We brought it with us and they helped us structure it for $12,000 and we got paid 12 grand 2.5 weeks later and paid her back. And that's, that's kind of the start. And you and I met because you were, a mentor with that company at the time. So we would use that service that we were, our bonus service for buying it. We would use that quite a bit to just, ask a question or get some insight or just to kind of figure out what we were doing in those first few months and years in the business.
Tell me about how you started finding investors by going to some of these meetings, and you would go ahead and go to these meetings and they would ask you to come up on stage because you were one of their success stories.
Mhm.
And then while you were there, you go ahead and pitch 2 or 3 or 4 of these deals and you get investors that would go ahead and purchase your properties from you there.
Yeah, so we just kind of didn't have any fear about it. And it was kind of not a joke, but kind of we're like, you know, they would say in the seminar, well, just, ask people if they know anyone that wants to invest in money or if they have, X amount of money and they want to invest in an 8 to 10% return or, that kind of thing. And so we would just sort of practice our pitch when we were up there giving testimonials, just sort of for fun. And, kind of built in, not, straight out asking, but we, say, you guys, it's easy enough. All you got to do is go out and ask people, like, for instance, hey, does anyone here have, and we would take smaller investments too. And without a doubt, pretty much every time we went, somebody said, well, I'll be a private investor for you. So we got a lot of private investors that just wanted a return and didn't want to have to actually do the work. So that's sort of how we got going. And then the guy that taught the course, he became a really good friend of ours, and he would get us hard money. It was expensive hard money, but we didn't have to cover. He would pretty much cover all of our renovation costs, the purchase costs, and we didn't have to pay anything until we closed on the deal. So it was kind of we got real lucky.
Tell me about your article, The Fear of Success, because that I thought was just a transcendent moment. Tell me about that concept and how you arrived at that.
Well, so we were just kind of, I guess it was one of those days or nights, and we were just kind of sitting there talking and, you know, started to wonder, what is it that holds you back? And is it the fear of actually getting, of failing, or is it what happens and who do I have to become if I am successful? If this actually does work, then what? And I think a lot of times it's easy, and I mentioned IVF, I'll go back to that for another kind of, different example. So you're on this wheel and you're just, the next step, the next step, the next step. So in our third round, we'd had genetic testing done because of prior miscarriages. And we had 2 good, healthy embryos that came back. And we just kept going for a few more because we're like, we need some in the bank. And what it really was is we were afraid that if we stopped or if we went, forward and it didn't work out, what was going to happen. But in so many cases, we're afraid of, but what if this actually works and it's good? Like, am I ready to use that example? Am I actually ready to be a parent, or am I more comfortable kind of in this hamster wheel, in this cycle, rather than, who I need to become or what I need to do in order to, to continue being successful and to continue moving forward. So I think the concept is more, sometimes we have to become different people and do different things to get to where we want to be or what our picture of success is. And then the other part of that is that it's a moving target, right? So when I sat in that free seminar that sold us the $4,000 seminar, at that moment, if I could make $250,000 a year, I mean, I'd be rich and life would be good. And, I would never need to do anything after that. And that'd be the end of it. And then when you get there, you're like, well, and I'm not saying that we're materialistic, but then we say, well, we want to provide this for our kids, or we want to set up their retirement, or, we want to take a trip to this place, or we want to, whatever it is you want to do, you have to keep stretching yourself. And I think you just sort of have to stop thinking and start doing, because whether you're afraid of failure or success, it holds you back.
The one thing I gathered from that article was that most people are afraid of success. And so they will typically only give 50%. So that way they can say, if I fail, it's because I didn't give it my all. And in your article, you said, give it your all. If you fail, you fail, but at least you've given it 100%, and you never have to second guess yourself and say, if I'd only done this, give it your all. And then if you succeed, wonderful. If you fail, boom, you don't have anything to worry about. And I really love that concept. Tell me about.
It's been a while since I've written that article. So
Well, I remember your concepts. I remember your words. Tell me about moving to Texas and your transition from being a real estate investor to being a real estate agent. And I also want you to talk about this book, How to Sell Your Home for Top Dollar, just a little bit, if you could, please.
Sure, sure. So when we moved out to Texas, it was right after the market crashed in 2008, 2009. And my husband and I had started a very successful digital marketing company. We built it to 7 figures, and, we're doing events and seminars and lots of training, education, and we're doing pretty well with it, and ended up building a software platform from the ground up. And so I will tell you that if you've not done that, it's not for the faint of heart. It was very stressful, very time consuming. All the things that you would think of software development, think of that and more. It was just an adventure. And so I guess it was about a year-ish ago. So, I'll do, and I got my license out here. It was actually, I took the test when Emma was 2 weeks old, because my husband was like, are you almost back? Because she was ready to eat and she was mad. So it was just kind of funny that I'll never forget. I'm like, yep, no, I know exactly when I got my license, because the infant was home screaming for lunch. And so I didn't really do a whole lot with it. I just kind of had it here, and I kept my license. I still have it in Florida as well. And then I just said, we're going to go ahead and dive in. The company was, on autopilot for the most part. And, we weren't having to do too much on a day-to-day basis. And I did some numbers. And so if I can get this community just 10% market share in here, it's about $500,000 gross commission. It's right by home. It's right by the kids. So let's just give it a shot. And so basically a year ago, I signed on with Magnolia Real Estate, out of Waco, Chip and Joanna Gaines, and pretty much started the beginning of this year, which, a pandemic's probably not the best year to go and start a new business, but nonetheless, here we are, and that's sort of how I got it back into kind of full circle from real estate. And we still do flip. We have a house on the market in Florida right now, and we have one that's about to be done renovated, and one that we're kind of doing a light lipstick on and trying to sell or finance that. So we're still active investing. And then we, have the email company, and then we're building up the real estate business out here, and, on target to probably do about 10 million in sales, which, the statistics, I think, for agents are, most agents quit before they've ever done 5 deals. So I said, yeah, not too bad, considering we started this in a pandemic. And, on top of that, our inventory here is just insanely low. So, not bad for a first year out of the gate.
Tell me about writing this book, How to Sell Your Home for Top Dollar. And in reading this book, the thing that I really gathered from this is that you don't use terminology that is foreign to people. This is written so that anyone can go ahead and pick up this book and know, oh, these are the steps I need to take to go ahead and sell my home, whether you use a realtor or not. And I want to talk about that in just a little bit. But this is a book that anybody that is thinking about selling their house should go ahead and read first, because it tells you, do this, do this, do this. And they're all common sense. There's nothing metaphysical. There's nothing tricky. This is just real clear stuff. Tell me about how you wrote this.
Well, so, again, in addition to the investing, I spoke and taught real estate investing, and I actually did a weekly teleseminar and then webinar for probably close to a decade. And so I got pretty good at just explaining things so that, people could understand it, that we're just getting started in real estate investing. And so I've been doing this a minute, and whether it's been selling houses or helping people buy houses or doing my own. And so the concept sort of just became, you know, again, from the internet marketing world that we were in for so long. And I remember when I first started real estate, even we were doing web pages for our properties, and this is, way back when. This is back when I would code them myself. And so technology's never been, anything we've shied away from, and we've, adapted. Hey, what works in internet marketing? We can adapt this to real estate. And so, it's real common. You go to a website and you enter your name and email and you get a special report. And sometimes they're good and sometimes they're okay. And sometimes you're going, give me my email address back. I don't want this. And so to me, it was, rather than, it was to help people. And then also, to be candid, it was a marketing tool for me. So if I can provide you something of value that you're going to keep and that you may get a tip or two out of, then when and if you want to sell your house, maybe you'll give me a call, and I can help you through that process. And so that was sort of the reason behind it. And then, as I wrote it, it was just more of this is sort of the process we go through. We, to this day, we stage all of our houses. This is how we evaluate, is it what do we sell it for? It doesn't matter that I want to make $1 million on this house. Is it going to sell for that? And so just walk people through the entire process. So, if you need to sell now, you might be taking a discount, but you don't have to, necessarily go in and do repairs. If you want top dollar and, you've got a little bit of time on your hand, then we employ this strategy. So it kind of goes through all of that. And then, just the process, because there's a lot to it. And I think as investors and agents, we take a lot of that for granted because we just know it so well. And so I just wanted a way for people to say, oh yeah, but remember, this process is, this is next, this is next, this is next, and so on and so forth, because there are a lot of moving parts. And it is a big deal for people. I mean, you don't buy and sell houses every other month unless you're flipping them. But, and even when we're buying houses, it's still a big deal when you're, about to put, four or $500,000 down or $100,000 down or get a mortgage or whatever you're going to do. It still is a big deal every time. And I think it's just important to walk people through those. And it also makes it easy for me. So when we go through and we talk about getting your home ready to sell or, on the market, we go through the first, and if you've ever seen a fixer upper, we kind of do it a little bit like their episodes, if you will. So we say, okay, this is sort of our demo day. I'm going to walk through and we're going to basically edit all the stuff out of your house that you don't need. And then when you think you've got everything done, now take 50% more out. And then we come back and we say, okay, now we're going to do a deep clean. And then at the end, we say, okay, now we're going to come back in and we're going to make it pretty. And we're going to make it look like it does on TV when these people finish flipping their houses, or, you go into a model home, and we're going to turn your home into that model home so that when somebody walks in, there's the wow factor and they're ready to buy it. So that's just sort of the why and what, if you will.
I want to ask a question. Tell me why why does it make sense for someone to list with a real estate agent when they could go ahead and sell it themselves? And I have my opinion. I would rather have someone that is educated in the industry, that has done hundreds and hundreds of hours of experience and research, to act as an advocate for me to go ahead and sell my house rather than do it myself if I didn't have the knowledge I had. Tell me why a person should always use the best realtor they can possibly get, because the best are always free. The value of their service more than pays for their fee.
Yeah, so it's funny, rather than explain the why, there's all kinds of statistics. You can go look at the National Association of Realtor statistics and all that about buy owner. But first and foremost, you kind of have to, let's say you're even going to sell it by owner, you pretty much have to factor in a commission for the buyer's agent, because the majority of people buy through a real estate agent. So if you want to sell your home, then chances are the buyer is going to be represented by an agent. So if you say, well, pay the commission, they're going to say, okay, then we're going to not 3% off of the price we were going to pay. And, so, and the way commissions work is, so let's say, and commissions are all negotiable and, all that good stuff that we're required to say, but let's just use a 6% because a lot of people are sort of familiar with that idea. Well, 3% goes to the person that brings the buyer, 3% go to the person that lists the home. And then from there, that agent has to pay their broker a certain amount of money. And the thing is, if you have somebody that works essentially for free, that's about the quality you're going to get, because they're not going to do, I have professional photographs done. We do a full marketing campaign. I go in and do the staging. So if you want to pay a photographer, if you want to pay a stager to come in, if you want to do all of that stuff, then go for it. But when it comes time to negotiate, it's also nice to have somebody in the middle who's not emotional, because you're going to get mad when they say, oh, well, we want a credit for the carpet, and that's, you pick that carpet out and it's your favorite carpet, and how could they possibly not like your carpet? So it's helpful to have somebody that can say, well, let's look at the pros and cons of the deal. That's one. So let me give you two recent situations for listings. So one was a friend of mine, and we went through and I brought my stager in to just kind of be a second opinion and help with, because we are good friends, it was helpful to have an independent person go through. So while we were there, we kind of said, well, we've got a lot of stuff that needs to quote unquote be edited out. So she suggested a moving sale in it's my friend's parents' house. So my friend did a really remarkable job of advertising this on Facebook using various tools within the Facebook marketplace. And so she'd put kind of key items that people really want to get from a garage sale. And then said, that's fine, you can come pick it up at the moving sale. So when I got there, and we did it from like 11 to 3. So I got there at a few minutes before 11, and I had it on the GPS just to track time. And when I turned down the street, or when I was turning, the street was yellow on the map because they had so many people waiting to get in, and they wouldn't let them in before 11 o'clock. So, so basically for 2 days, we had hundreds of people to the property, and it was a beautiful lot. And from the very beginning, I said, the lot's going to be what sells it. So the first night of the sale, we had a contract come in, and it was full asking price and, all reasonable terms, and it was fine. And they were about to take it. And I said, let's wait. For one, they haven't been inside, and we haven't even actually put it on the market. So I'd rather not take a contract because there's nothing extraordinary about it. It's great. It's full price, but we literally just put the sign in the yard for this open house or for this moving sale. And I mean, we haven't even done a deep clean, let alone come back and stage this. Well, the next day I said, we just have to let people walk through. We've got nothing to lose. Let's just do it. And then we'll go from there. So long story short, without all the back and forth, we got a contract for $30,000 over asking price. They waived the appraisal, which I'm like, there's, where if it appraised, let's say it's 600 and they offered 700, they were willing to pay the whole 700, even if it didn't appraise. And they were putting like 50% down. So, in this particular case, for sure, I earned the commission, right? But you can say, well, it's a hot market. They could have done it without you, possibly. And so they could have saved a little bit of a commission. However, when it came to negotiate, the agent sent me her list, and I promptly sent it back and said, you're out of your mind. And so, right there, they had all kinds of things. Some were reasonable. And I told the agent, I said, look, some of these are reasonable. Some of them are insane. So why don't you pick the things that actually matter, and you give me a number? Like they wanted to replace all the windows in the house. And I said, they're 80 years old. They're not replacing the windows, and it's 8 to 10 weeks to replace windows. So this is insane. They did have some legitimate things, but then they also had smoke detectors in the bedrooms. I said, no. And so we'd already started work on some of the plumbing issues. And I said, they're willing to do the plumbing. And we have a net number that if it's under this number, because we talked about what the repairs she would have had to make before we put it on the market and all this other stuff. And so, I feel like we probably would have settled close to 650, 675 or probably 650 when all was said and done with just a normal, situation. And again, we're in a hot market. So the agent ultimately comes back after some back and forth, and she says, well, if you take care of the plumbing and give us a $2,000 credit. And I thought, we better sign this because it's probably a typo. She probably meant 20,000 and we probably still would have taken it. But, just that alone, our ballpark number in our head was about 15,000. So right there, I covered the majority of my commission, just negotiated, not letting them negotiate down. So that's one scenario. Then I have another friend who were getting ready to put their house on the market, and the inspector didn't catch the hail damage when they bought the home. And so they were kind of ticked because they felt that they'd been cheated by the prior owners who could have just had it done with the insurance and everything would have been fine. And so they were kind of like, well, why should we have to cover that expense? Because it's not our fault. And so I said, well, look, why don't you call your insurance company? You've been here for 5 years. Let's see what happens. Make them tell you no. So they called the insurance company. They came out. They're putting a new roof and windows in for a $5,000 deductible, which is going to get them, $35,000, $40,000 more in the sale of their home. So, it's those kinds of things where if somebody knows what they're doing and knows how to look at situations and, has the experience, they can very real in a very real way put more money in your pocket than they're going to quote unquote take. I mean, in both of those scenarios, even paying, my commission, because they just still probably paid a buyer's commission, just in those two things, I negotiated my commission or, basically got them more than my commission would have been, period, whether it was negotiating repairs or getting the insurance company out there.
The best are always free. The value of their services more than pays for their fee. And when you have a professional that has 20 years of experience, it just makes so much difference. Tell me a little bit about how someone can order your book, How to Sell Your Home for Top Dollar.
Sure. It's on Amazon. So the easiest way to get it is from Amazon. Anybody that wants it as a listener of your program, I'd be happy to if they just reach out, I guess, Facebook or email. You can Heather Tankersley at magnoliarealty.com. I can send you a free copy just for being a listener and a participant in Reed's program. So if you want it free, just shoot me an email and I'll send it out. And if you want to buy it, you can buy it on Amazon.
Now, if someone wants to contact you to have them list your house and sell their house, how would they contact you?
Sure. Again, you can do that. Easy is probably Heather T at magnoliarealty.com. Or my phone number is 561-459-9203. And either of those will come right to me.
Heather, I just wanted to thank you so much. You're a superstar. I appreciate you more than I can say. And I love more pictures of your two little girls. They're just so darn cute. It reminds me of that little girl from Monsters, Inc., Boo, when she had her little pigtails. Oh,
yes.
They're just the cutest thing in the world.
Well, funny story about that. The one picture you're talking about, we were in Disney World. We were actually in Epcot, and I had them in carriers. My oldest, who's just turned 5, would probably still be in a carrier today if she could. So I had the little one in a carrier, and for some reason I went to maneuver her, and she had made a mess all over me, all over her clothes. So the picture, my husband's kind of holding her forward just so we don't get anything on us while we're trying to get to the restroom to get her all cleaned up. And she's got her pigtails popped out to the side with the biggest smile on her face looking around Disney World. It was pretty funny.
Heather, thank you so much. If someone wants to go ahead and reach you and get the book, How to Sell Your Home for Top Dollar, they would go to the email address again.
Heather T at magnoliarealty.com, and I'll get that right out to you.
Or you can also go to Amazon and get the book, How to Sell Your Home for Top Dollar. Heather Seitz Tankersley, it's been a pleasure knowing you all these years. You're a superstar. I appreciate you. Thank you so much, Heather.
Thank you so much for having me. I hope I gave your folks some good info.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
And I just stopped the recording. Perfect.
Okay.
Heather, thank you. Have a wonderful day.
You too. Thank you. I appreciate it. Hopefully it was what you were looking for.
Absolutely wonderful. Thank you.
Awesome. Bye-bye.